Hi, and welcome to these Passion Week devotionals, very short ones that I would like to share with you. My hope is that we would look at these narratives that take place during the Passion Week of Christ and that we would learn from them lessons that we could put into practice in our own life. Now, the very first of these is taken very early on in the Passion Week of Christ, and a narrative that happens very early on. And this is right after Jesus has entered into Jerusalem in what the Bible would describe as the triumphant entry of Christ. Right after that, Matthew and Mark record for us in their Gospels the account of Jesus going up to the temple. But on the way, something very significant happens. Something a bit absurd maybe, but significant that happens. Jesus going up, and you find this in Mark chapter 11, and that's what we want to look at today. But Jesus, while going up to the temple, he sees a fig tree. And it's in blossom, and its leaves, they look beautiful. And so Jesus goes towards it. In fact, Matthew, Mark would tell you Jesus was hungry. And so he goes towards it looking for fruit. And when he comes close to it, he finds there's no fruit. It's a fig tree with all leaves, but no fruit. And Jesus does something bizarre, something that might confuse you if you read the passage for the first time. He looks at the fig tree and he pronounces a curse on it, that it be barren. And Matthew and Mark both record for us that that's exactly what the plight of the fig tree is. That the fig tree goes barren and bears no fruit. It shrivels up and dies because of the curse. Now that's an absurd thing for Jesus to do. It's why get angry with a tree? But Matthew and Mark are careful to record for us what's happening around this event. Around the event is when Jesus goes to the temple. And the symbolism or the similarity between both these accounts is unmistakable, and you cannot afford to miss it. Because in the temple account, Jesus comes up to the temple in Jerusalem. And now keep in mind, this is the week of the Passover. And so the whole town is abuzz with festivity. People are celebrating the Passover. And Jerusalem would have been crowded with people that had come to celebrate. The temple, more so, would have been crowded with people coming to give their offerings before God. And in that context, Jesus comes up to the temple, which would have been buzzing with life. And he comes up to it, and when he comes close, he finds that the temple is full of people that are moneylenders and people who are extorting others in the name of God. And Jesus comes up to them, and in Matthew chapter 11 and verse 17, he says, is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations, but you have made it a den of robbers. Now, Jesus gets upset, because he comes close to the temple and he finds that what it should be is not what it is. From far away it looks alive. It looks like this religious hub where people are all coming together to remember God and to celebrate God. But when he comes close, he finds that that's not the reality. He comes close and he finds that godliness is far from the place. It was meant to be a place of prayer. It became a place of profit. It was meant to be a place of worship, but it became a place of worldliness. And Jesus gets angry, and the Bible tells us he drives those moneylenders out. He turns the tables over. He gets upset. And it is in that context, and that's why the gospel writers are very careful to tell you that the fig tree event happens at the same time of the temple event. Because the similarity is condemning. It's shocking. In both cases, from far away, there was fruit or there was a promise of fruitfulness. There was a promise of life. But when Jesus came close, he found no fruit. All leaves, no fruit. A fakeness of life without any fruit bearing. And that is the point of the fig tree event. It is a humbling and sobering judgment of Christ. And it warrants us to stop and to check our own heart, to look at ourselves and to ask ourselves a difficult question. Have we got a lot of leaves? Have we got all the different symbols of life or pictures of life and spiritual life about us? You know, we go to church, we give in church, we serve in church, and we're putting all these leaves are there. But here's a question: if Jesus was to come close, if Jesus was to come close and to walk with you closely, to spend a week or maybe just a day with you and with me, what would he find? Would he find fruit? Or would Jesus come close and find nothing? See, this is a portrait he gives us of what real faith looks like. What faith he's expecting. He's not expecting a lot of leaves and busyness and activity. He's expecting fruit. Paul tells you what the fruit is in Galatians 5. He tells you the fruit of the Spirit is the character of Christ. He tells you a whole lot of different things about it. Patience, godliness, joy. But the point is that it is the character of Christ that is produced within us. That is the fruit of the Spirit. And when Jesus comes close to a believer's life, someone who has put their faith in Jesus and has asked him to be Lord and Savior of their life and their heart, when Jesus comes close to someone like that, he expects to find fruit. In that same Passion Week, little later, he would talk to his disciples in the upper room in John chapter 15, and it tells us that he says, "Abide in me, and let me abide in you, and my words abide in you, and you will bear fruit, much fruit." And then in John 15:16, he says, "That is the purpose I chose you. I chose you to bear fruit. Fruit that will last." My brother, my sister, a portrait of true Christian faith, of a faith that has transformed us through Christ. That portrait will be a fruit-bearing one. It is a portrait of a fruit-bearing faith, not a fake faith that has a semblance of life and a pretense of spirituality, but a true faith, one that bears fruit in the life of the one who claims and professes that faith, the fruit being the very character of God in him. My prayer for you and for me is through this Passion Week, as we come up towards Good Friday and Easter, that you would be able to search yourself, and me too, that we would be able to search our hearts and we would be able to answer the question, what would Jesus find if he came close to us? And may our answer be that he would find fruit.